Mike,
Hey,
welcome.
good to be here.
Thank you for coming on. All right, for everyone who doesn't know you, I want to do a quick intro.
All right.
This is Mike Mills, and I'm going to give you kind of like my version of your bio. Is that okay? So the first thing that I want to say about Mike is he went to the U.S. Air Force Academy, which I just have to say, with a godson at West Point, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all those people that go and the education and the discipline that people get there. So just thank you for your service. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks for paying for our education.
Hey, I think that was a pretty fair trade. I may have come out on the good end of that. Um, so Mike is obviously no longer in the Air Force. He owns Mills Wealth Advisors, which he's owned for about 2 decades. And he really is great at talking to people about what it is that they need and helping them achieve their like life goals, retirement
Goals.
goals.
I think, yeah, money helps, finance goals, right?
It does. Money makes the world go around. So he has all the certifications that you want. He's got all the initials. He's a CFP, a certified financial planner. He's a chartered life underwriter, a certified fund specialist. So yada, yada, yada. He's got
Yada, yada.
the alphabet soup, right? So Mike, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Look forward to talking about it.
And so I want to do full disclosure because this is going to come up in our conversation. Mike is doing our 401k. And the reason I wanted to have him on is because in talking to our clients, one of the questions we get is, should I be doing a 401k? And, the CFO has a number of answers, and they are things like, you can afford it now or you can't afford it now, which I feel sure, Mike, you're going to have an opinion on.
For sure.
And things like, it's a great recruiting tool. But I want to ask you, because you're the professional, how do you know what is happening in your business? How do you know when it's time to do it?
Yep. I think it's as soon as you can, and I think a lot of times, because, we want to put it in the business first, right? We got to keep the business alive.
Right.
But I think as soon as the business starts paying dividends and you get to the point that you can afford it, the sooner you save, the less you have to save.
Right.
Or the more you'll have, And so I think sooner is better. The tax deduction is kind of the bonus.
All right. Talk about the tax deduction a little more.
Yep. So like as a business owner, you get a deduction for the plan itself.
Okay.
And so so it comes off the top of the income, makes it, what's the best way to describe it? Just whatever your tax rate is, right? It's going to reduce your income by that amount, by what goes into the plan.
So what about payroll taxes? We're going deep because you brought up taxes. So we're going to go deep really fast. All right, I'm going to back up. I'm going to hold this question.
Yep.
All right. So you think we should do it as soon as possible?
And there are different kind of plans, right? So like, any amount's better than none.
Okay.
And so the easiest, lowest cost way is to just do a regular IRA, not even make it I guess it depends how many employees your business has, right? But anybody can do an IRA, $6,000 a year, no cost to set it up. You just got to open an account and fund it. So, everybody has that option available at any time. And then I think step 2 or the next step, would be doing what's called a simple plan or a SEP plan. And those have virtually no cost to set up, but you have to do it also. If you do it for you, you also have to do it for your employees, right? So it can be more expensive depending on, how many employees you have and if they contribute or don't contribute. But those plans cost literally nothing to set up.
And you can put more into it, right?
And you can put with the simple plan, it's like a simple 401k, you can do 13.5 is the most you can do from a deferral. And so one of the questions I always ask is, well, how much are you planning on doing? And if you're going to do 13.5 or less, the simple is almost always the easiest answer because it's quick, it's easy, it's simple. You can do it from year to year, turn it on and off. There's no testing, record keeping. And so that can be really easy. And then kind of step 2 then I think is to roll into the 401k, which is a little bit more costly. It's, it's $1,500 a year with about $500 to set up. So it's not a lot, but it's more. And that's an ongoing cost. And then you have the headaches of administering the plan from, annual testing, you got to file a 5,500 tax return, stuff like that. All
right. So let's talk about, so we know how much we can put in a traditional IRA. We know how much we can put in a simple IRA. In a SEP IRA, how much can we put in?
$57,000.
All right. So that's a big step up from the simple.
Yep. And it's all employer paid. So the difference, it's a simplified employee pension plan.
Okay.
So it's an employer paid, there's no deferral component to it.
Okay, so the employer pays it.
That's right. And so a lot of times what you'll find is if you have multiple employees, it can get really expensive really quick.
Okay.
If you have 5 employees and everybody puts in 15%, you elect a percentage, and then whatever you pay for you pay for them.
Okay, so if I put in $50,000 for myself, I have to put in $50,000 for each
percentage base is 15% for you, 15% for them.
Got it. Okay. So when we move to a 401k, we've got a couple of options. We can either match what they put in, right? Up to a certain percentage.
That's right.
Or we have the option, which is what I took, which is whether they participate or not, I do a safe harbor 3%.
That's right. Non-elected 3%.
So I just do 3%. So by the way,
everybody gets it, whether they participate or not, they get the 3%.
Yeah. So just so you know, full transparency, we're hiring a lot. So if this looks attractive to you, let me know. All right. Okay. So we do that 3%, whether they put anything in or not. So they're getting 3% free money every year.
Yep.
So how much can the company put in?
Up to that, well, the most is up to that 57,000, which it's the difference between the deferral and that 57,000.
Okay.
So typically it's going to be about $35,000.
Okay. So, all right.
If you're talking is the additional that can be done through a different, it's a separate plan. Usually it's like a profit sharing plan that's bolted on top of the 401k. So the underlying piece would be the deferral, that 401k that allows the employee deferral. So whether you're a business owner or not, right? Everybody is employee of the business can make that deferral. And then a lot of times you'll bolt on another plan on top called a profit sharing plan. So it's really an integrated 2 plans in one.
Okay.
And so you've got the deferral, the match, and then whatever's left over can be funded by a profit sharing plan.
Okay. And the employee can put in 19.5, right?
Right.
And then I, as the employer, they can put in a little bit more if they're over 50, right? I know
that. 6,000,
yeah. So, and then I do my 3%. And then on top of that, I can do profit sharing up to a max of 57,000.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. However, I'm not obligated to do that.
That's correct.
That's the difference between stuff.
Yeah, usually we would make it discretionary and it would be year to year. And you have a really good year, everybody does a great job. Like in our company, we put at least 2% extra into the employee plan on top of the match, on top of payroll and bonus and all that.
Yeah. And what I found usually with our clients is that if we're doing the 3% safe harbor and 2% profit sharing minimum for everybody, and you have what's called gateway testing, that means 5% per employee. And then you can really max out a couple of other employees, like, yourself.
That's right.
Okay.
Which I think helps, get money out of the business on
Yeah.
a tax efficient basis. And it's kind of creates like one of the three legs of retirement, I think, is Social Security, some type of retirement planning, right? And then the business value, which
Oh,
hopefully is the biggest.
awesome. Um, so when I did this, I well, first of all, I did something wrong, but that's right. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew that I wanted a 401k. I knew I wanted 3%. I wanted a 3% safe harbor. I knew I wanted all of these things, but most people don't know what I know. So what are the questions you usually ask people? How do you find the right plan for them?
I think the first question we almost always start with is, who do we want it to benefit the most? And that's the simple question, right? But it really matters. I mean, into which direction you go, into what features you put on the plan.
Well, I asked somebody that once, the first time I ever set up a plan for a client. We went into it, and I guess someone asked this of us, and the two of us had different answers. I'm like, we're going to max out the owner. And he's like, I don't care about me. I'm doing this for my employees.
Yep.
And I thought he was just freaking nuts. And then, 5 years later, I go to set mine up, and I get the question, who does it need to benefit most? And I'm like, oh, this is all about my employees and, a great place to work and all that. And you were kind of like, hello, you. And I thought I would never, ever be that person. But there I am, because I love my team. All right, so who does it benefit first? And then what's the next question?
I think the next question goes, is there any other features that you want to have in particular, like the different types of plan, how much are we, is available? Because the how much available is going to guide us into which types of plans we use. Like for instance, if someone says, I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars I'm trying to get out of the business, maybe we add a pension plan on top.
Yeah, can we talk about pension plans for a second?
Mm-hmm. Got a different animal, right? Because mostly we've been talking about defined contribution, whereas pension is a defined benefit. So
yeah, I can remember. So, I live in Fort Worth. When I was in grad school, my best friend's husband said, you need to come work for the railroad, because he works for the railroad. Sure. He works for BNSF. And I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, well, let me tell you. And he got very intense for a moment. And he's like, there are, all the leadership is older. And there are a whole bunch of people that are younger. He's like, and there's nobody our age in the railroad. So there's a lot of opportunity for people our age. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's like, and you make more in retirement than you do when you work. I'm like, whoa, backing up, what are you talking about? And they've got a defined benefit plan. They've got a pension plan. And everyone at BNSF retires like the day they turn 65 because they make so much. So pension plans are great if you're trying to shove a whole lot of money into retirement. When are they not a good idea?
I think when a business is younger, typically, because the pension can eat up a lot of cash flow that could be used to grow the business. Right? And generally speaking, most of the time, right, in a successful business, right, we're going to make a lot more putting it back into our business than we are hiring employees than we are going to put it in the pension plan. Right. Generally speaking. So I think, the best time to do it is when you have probably older owners, younger employees, or fewer employees, and you have really high cash flow, end of a career, consulting practice, stuff like that's where we see it the most. Could be a medical practice, where.
Yeah. You said something that was really important. Older owner, younger employees.
High cash flow.
So someone said to me one time, oh, you should have a defined benefit plan. I'm like, no, I'm one of the youngest people on my team. No, I can't afford, because I have to basically, as the owner, I have to basically catch them up. I have to put away enough money to support an older employee's
benefit.
yeah.
And you have less time.
And I have less time to get that money in there. So you and I have a client in common, and someone told her to do a defined benefit plan, and there weren't a lot of employees, and it was our client, and then she had someone working for her who was like nearing 60 or something. And she was like, oh my God, this is so expensive. I'm like, who told you to do this?
Well,
I'm like, you're profitable, you're throwing off a lot of cash, but you can't afford this.
That's right. That's right. It can get very expensive.
So older owners, younger employees, because you have to pay a smaller amount. The assumption is that the money will go into the plan and grow.
Yeah. And typically a slower growing business.
Okay.
Slower
or growing business?
Well, maybe more mature is a better word than slower growing.
Oh, because it doesn't need the cash to fund the growth?
Right. You don't need the cash to grow.
Okay.
It's paying out more than you want to reinvest in the business.
Got it. Okay.
Because it diverts cash flow that could be used to grow the business, right? So
yeah,
because it eats a lot of cash.
Here's what I love about you, Mike. You own a business. We know each other from EO.
Yeah.
And so you get that entrepreneur mindset. And I've talked to plan providers before, and I've talked to consultants, and I've talked to all kinds of people that deal in 401ks. And what is so interesting is they're all about putting the money in. But you kind of caution against that. Like, don't do a defined benefit plan if you would get a better return on those assets, putting them back into the business.
That's right. I think that it's about balance, right? So I think both is better than just one, because there's some businesses fail, right? And so like once I get in the retirement plan, it's safe, but I lose the liquidity of the money.
Right.
And so the ability to leverage the money, to velocitize the money, I can use it when it's in my bank account. I can get it back and forth. I can loan it to the business if need be. When I get in the retirement plan, it's pretty locked up.
It's locked in. All right. Now, we've talked about a 401k, but within the 401k, you can actually invest, you can defer as an employee, pre-tax or post-tax, right? So you can do regular or a Roth.
Yep. We would set it up both ways.
Okay. How do you help people decide if they should be investing in the traditional 401k or the Roth 401k?
I'm of the opinion it's kind of a math equation. And when I'm at the upper end of the tax bracket, I think deferral is better. And when I'm at the bottom of the lower end of the tax bracket, I usually would want to do the Roth IRA.
So a lot of it is deciding like where we are now, what the tax environment looks like now.
That's right.
And what we think the tax environment's going to look like when we retire.
And right now we're printing money around the clock, so it's clearly going to be more in the future, right?
Yes. we are going to have to pay this bill at some point.
At some point.
And it's going to be pretty ugly when it comes to.
It's definitely driving up future tax rates, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So, which is why that's why we did a Roth for me this year.
That's right. So the Roth is a good option long term. I think that, when you get to the very, 40%, stuff like that, what we see with really wealthy people, a lot of times you can still get your tax rates down to 25%, somewhere in there, pretty normally. And so I think you never want to reverse tax save.
Right.
So, maybe a little bit extra for future taxes being higher, but when you're at the north end of the tax bracket, I think that the deferral is still probably better. And in the middle or lower end, I would probably err on the side of doing the Roth.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. What else do you think we need to know? So we've talked about Roth, we've talked about IRA, we've talked about the different types of plans.
Yeah. I think that some of the other options that we come into is just when you choose a provider, there's a lot of different providers out there.
Okay, wait.
What's our recommendation on that?
Hold on. Let's back up, because this is where I always get confused.
Mm-hmm.
There's not just one provider. There are multiple providers.
That's right. You have a third-party administrator.
All right, yeah, let's go through and discuss what all of them are.
Yep.
All right.
So we have a third-party administrator,
And what is their job?
also called a TPA, and they provide the administration of the plan. So
Okay.
they do the 5,500 tax return, and then they just oversee the plan to make sure that it's compliant with ERISA.
So they're the people that do the testing. Are they
Testing.
the people, like, if you want to go in and change your deferral amount
Take a
or
loan.
do something like that, you're doing it on the TPA's platform?
That's correct.
Okay. So the TPA is all the mechanical part of it.
That's right. And then
Got it.
we typically have a custodian. And that
Okay.
custodian would be like a Fidelity or a Schwab or TD Ameritrade. It's who holds the money. And they're fairly invisible in the process for the most part. Sometimes you'll log into their website, but the custodians in the background, they administer the trades.
Okay.
You know, the brokerage firm that administers the trades is done on the custodial platform. And then you can have an advisor like us.
Okay.
And it's not a requirement that you have an advisor, but most plans have some sort of advisor on the plan, whether that's someone's picking the fund line up and making sure that it complies with the investment policy statement.
Well, okay, so let's talk about having an advisor, because when you open a 401k, when you start a 401k,
Mm-hmm.
you as the employer take on, you now have a fiduciary duty, right?
That's right.
You now have, you're on the hook.
Personally liable.
And if you don't have someone like you to help with the investments, and there aren't good investments options, or your people make bad investment choices, you can be on the line for that, right?
That's right. And there's been a lot of lawsuits in the last, 10 years, but mostly they've been bigger plans.
Okay.
A lot of really big, lawsuits. For the not administering the plan, not following whatever the investment policy was. Maybe there was a conflict of interest a lot of times between the provider and the way the dollars were being shared.
Uh-huh.
So there's the plans have gotten much more competitive in the last 10 years as a result of those lawsuits, and it's been working its way lower into the spectrum. So I think the takeaway is, offload as much of that liability risk as you
I was gonna say, make someone else take on the liability.
Right. And a lot
it
of
carries
plans,
more insurance than we do.
That's right. And so, I think if you can offload that to what's called a 338 fiduciary, where your only requirement then is to pick the provider, and then they sit as in between you and the fund choices, and they're responsible for that. And it kind of absolves you. Your job is to make sure that they're doing their job, but you don't have to worry about the fund lineup, or they take the liability for all that.
Okay, that's good,
and if you don't do it that way, you assume more of that liability if you don't.
Okay. Yeah, I got out of this business for a reason. I don't want to take on that liability, and
as business owners, we have enough liability. Let's don't add to it.
Yeah, we don't need more. All right. So you said something. So who designs the plan?
Typically the advisor or the provider that you pick.
Okay.
So the three most common options are probably a payroll company. A lot of businesses, when they're getting going, use a payroll company.
Yeah.
And that's a really big cross sell from that payroll into a 401k plan. And typically the payroll company says they offer it and they're like, here you go, good luck. Our experience has been when that happens, right? The fund choices aren't often as good as they could be. It's usually there's a lot of revenue sharing going on back and forth amongst the plan.
So I was running a law firm at one point, and Paycheck, I probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, a payroll company came in, and we were using them to run payroll, and they said, okay, we need to do a 401k for you. And this was right after I had gotten my CFA. So I knew it all. I think I made that girl cry because she was nothing but a salesperson.
Right.
And she couldn't talk to me about any of the ins and outs. She couldn't talk to me about why we would want one thing and not another one. If I had said gateway testing, she would have had a totally blank look on her face. She didn't understand the different investment options. I mean, she was a salesperson.
Yeah.
And
a
she
lot
was,
of times they're platforms you don't have a lot of control over them.
right. And that goes back to something that you said, what's the purpose of this?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have control over your plan, if it's an off-the-shelf plan and not something that you have worked with a competent advisor to create that's tailored to your needs, I mean,
I think I've always thought that one of the biggest predictors of future investment return is cost. And so if I can go use a Vanguard's platform or we use dimensional funds a lot. They're a very low cost provider when you look at total cost. There's lots of costs. And so we want to shrink those costs down as much as we can so that there's more return available for our employees and people and the participants in the plan.
okay.
And so typically when I can shop that across the whole marketplace, I can get a better deal than if I'm locked into, a related company.
Yeah. And that does happen. You get locked into a related company and then you just don't have options. All right.
A second common platform would be like one of the group annuity contracts.
I was going to say, so I know
payroll and group annuity are the two. And a lot of times you'll see those used a lot whenever you're like a property insurance or health insurance broker. They own a lot of 401k related companies, and it allows the different people to share the commission easier. Because an insurance license, any insurance license.
Wait, whoa. Can we back up for a second? Apparently the purpose of these is for them to share commissions and not for us to do retirement or care for our employees.
Everything costs money, right?
Yeah.
It does, but I think that's one of the reasons that those platforms get used a lot. They're typically a higher cost platform. And they're used more, when plans are smaller. As plans get bigger, they typically outgrow that structure because of cost, because the inherent costs are higher.
Yeah.
And so what I would tell people is sometimes it's better to pay a little bit more at the beginning, knowing that you're going to put money in the plan that's going to get bigger, then you don't have to switch.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not more expensive just because the fund costs are that much cheaper. 7 basis points for a S&P index fund.
So, let's talk about those costs because we have options with those costs, right? Mm-hmm. The employer can pay them out of pocket.
That's right.
Or you can actually spread them among all the participants.
That's right. By account balance is a pretty common way to do it.
Okay.
Right. So that everybody's paying for their share.
Then
a lot of times the employers will pay for the testing or like the TPA fee or the tax return.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll get we can either spread that, we can spread all the costs, or we can do it, in different, by balance.
I think I decided to eat all the costs, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so you can tell, look at the option. The mailman's here.
You hear my dog bark?
Katie, it's okay, baby girl. No one's invading. That's the front porch. One mailman can start a chain reaction. So I think you can tell. It's okay, still the mailman. I think you can tell what my purpose was when I set it up. Right. Because I'm paying all the expenses. I want to do that 3%, just 3% period.
Yep.
I've made all those decisions to make it incredibly employee friendly.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I want to talk about is as you're setting this plan up, let's go back to the profit sharing part of it. Mm-hmm. So when an employee or an employer makes either a deferral or a payment or a matching or whatever it is into the 401k, the employee owns that immediately, right?
Subject to vesting. So
In the 401k part?
On the deferral, they own 100%.
Okay.
The match, they usually own 100% if it's non-elective, like what you chose.
Okay.
Right.
But if we do profit sharing,
that's usually subject to a vesting requirement. It could
right.
be a cliff, or it could be, like over 5 years where it 20% a year.
So, well, what is the max amount of time that an employee can vest?
For a cliff vesting, 3 years.
3 years for cliff.
And then 5 years for graduated.
Okay.
It used to be 7, but I think it's 5.
I was going to say it used to be 7 because I remember trying to hit 7 at one point with a particular employer, and I left and I wasn't quite there, and I went back, and hey, they stacked my new time on top of my
But when you
old.
do it 7, I mean, it's a little bit each year, so you're still getting if you graduate it, you're always getting some.
Yeah.
Each year that you stay, versus cliff, where you don't get anything until you've been there the full time.
So which ones do you like, and why do you like different options?
I mean, I think it goes back to what's the purpose of the plan. And so if the longer I make that vesting requirement, the less it benefits the employees.
And they're golden handcuffs, man.
But it's handcuffs. And so it goes back to the purpose of the plan. And whose money is it? But generally with that profit sharing component, we see people going as long as they can because they want those handcuffs.
Yeah. And once again, I was all about my employees. I did 3 years, and it was gradual over 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. I'm employee friendly, man.
Come on.
But I also, if you look at who is on our team, they're a bunch of financial people. It's really, when you own a company, one of the things that you struggle with, let me rephrase this. One of the things many people struggle with is, how do I bonus my employees? And how do I show them that I value them? And a lot of people think it's just throw money out. That doesn't work for my team.
Yep.
If I give them money, I had one that so end of year, I always do a Christmas present and then a small bonus, not a lot. And for the past couple of years, I have given my team different trips. So last year, somebody went to Rhode Island and went sailing, and
that sounds fun.
I know, isn't it? And I give them a little bit of a cash bonus to pay for plane tickets and stuff like that. I cover other things. So one of the people on my team didn't even deposit the check that I wrote her in December until May. And another one's like, yeah, thanks for the check, and sticks it straight into retirement. So I learned early on that my team is not motivated by cash. Yep. They're motivated by other things. I have one employee that I used to pay for her season hockey tickets. And, that was fun. She loved it. I started to know when the Dallas Stars played. Benefit for me too, I guess. But all these financial people working for me, giving them a plan where they can stash money is huge for them, because that's what they're going to do with money.
Yeah.
So, that's part of the reason why I've made the decisions I've made.
That's awesome.
I know who we are as a company.
Yeah.
And everyone's not like that. Everyone does it for different reasons. Yeah.
And, I think that, 50% of people in America literally have not saved anything. And a lot of times, you'll see people switch jobs and they'll cash out the 401k versus rolling to the next one or moving it to an individual retirement account. And so I think the more we can educate people to keep it there, to fund the plan, to do the match. I mean, if you're matching 3 and someone puts in 3, that's 6. That's at least, that's half about what you need to replace your income typically if you do that for your whole career. So usually it's about 12 to 15% is what it takes to replace an income stream.
Huh. I need to send you more money. All right. So what are the biggest mistakes you see people make with a 401k?
I think not saving enough.
Okay.
Is obviously the single biggest mistake. And then I think
12%.
And then besides that, I think it's cost. It's the plan costs are too high, or not taking enough risk is another one that's pretty common, or taking too much risk.
All right. So can we talk about these?
Both of those can cause problems.
There are that it's not like they're new, but these like age things.
Age-based plans. Yep.
Yeah, where you say, okay, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, and they make investments based on your age.
So we would typically design 2 what we would call do-it-for-me options.
Okay.
And the first one, if you pick us as a 338, we're going to have an advisor-managed option. And it's a little different, but it's very similar to an age-based option, which is another one we would also have in the plan. Because both are good. It's like tomatoes and tomatoes. I prefer the advisor managed option because I can increase risk when things get cheap.
Yep.
Right. By, subject to the threshold set by, conservative, moderate, et cetera. And so what can happen with age-based options is, like, imagine the other day when the market went down because of COVID, if you had just hit your age band and it sold you out that day. And so that's you have to manage it a little bit more if something like that happens. Most people never look at it.
The other thing about age bands is the more money you have, typically the more risk you can take, right?
I could argue either side of that.
All right.
I would agree with that statement.
I would agree.
But I think you could argue the other side of it. But I think you could also argue, I've got enough money, I don't need to take any more risk.
Okay.
So I mean, I've seen people take both sides of that. And I don't think either one is wrong. I think it's a personal preference. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, if you're getting 100% of your money from the dividend, it doesn't really matter if markets go up or down if you're only spending the dividend.
Right. But being in an age band thing doesn't take into consideration any other investments you might have.
It's just straight up. It's gonna get more conservative as you get closer to that age.
Right. And you may not need it to be more conservative.
Right.
You may have a higher risk tolerance than that.
That's right. And I think that's the disadvantage to the age-based plans, is that it's whether it adds risk or takes risk off, depending on where you're at in the spectrum, is that what you want? Right.
It's not necessary. It's matched to what some statistical model for someone your age should be doing. It has nothing to do with you as a person. Whereas working,
but the good of that is that you don't have to do anything. The plan automatically gets more conservative as you get older. So you're not getting, so as you're accumulating the money, it's going to be getting more conservative, and they've been very successful, but is it optimal? I prefer the advisor managed option because I have a little bit more control over how I deploy those cash flows at different points in the cycle.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk.
They're both good. They're both do it for me options.
All right. I like do it for me, because the other option is
do it yourself.
DIY. And then do we open back up to that liability? If you take
usually the plan is there, and then they get the plan lineup, they can pick and choose from that lineup.
Okay.
And so what we would do is the 338, once again, we would monitor that. And if anybody if we notice there's too many people in the plan that are invested in emerging markets or in bonds, after and they're not going to be able to hit their goal. Either one of those can cause problems that we may want to reach out to them individually or do some education around either of those issues. Taking too much risk, not taking enough.
Okay, well, all right. So let's talk about you as the 338. Let's talk about you as the advisor, because one of the things that I love about you guys is you're very hands-on and you're very involved. And so Stephen works for you.
Yep.
And I was
pure greatness.
What?
I said pure greatness.
He is pure greatness. But I was pinging him the other day because I have new employees coming on and it's 90 days until they're eligible for the 401k. And I'm like, what's the paperwork and what do I need to do and all of this? And he's like, give me their names, their email addresses, and their hire dates, and I'll take care of everything else.
That's right.
Come on. Hallelujah. In 60 days, he's going to reach out to them. He's going to have the discussion with them. He's going to get all the stinking paperwork filled out. I don't have to do any of that. My team didn't have to do that. I love that.
Yeah. We try to be an outsourced solution so you can worry about running your business.
Yeah, because I have other things to do than scrape around.
Any more things to do than worry about this.
Yeah. But I love that about you guys because you really will. It's not okay, here's your plan. See you in 5 years.
Yeah. And like I said, we really think that the 401k becomes a really good tool for us to be able to scale our advice so we can work individually with your employees. Because, we want them to make sure they're saving the right amount and they pick the right plan, whether Roth or the regular.
Yeah.
And so that we can meet one-on-one and make that happen.
Absolutely. All right. What else? What do people need to know? Do you have last parting? Well, first of all, Mike, I think I've got your information on the screen.
Yep.
So I have your phone number and your email address, right?
Yep.
What's your website?
It's millswealthadvisors.com.
All right. So people can contact you. Easy to do.
Anytime.
Do you have any kind of parting words of wisdom?
I don't think so. I think that, I think anytime if you have a plan, you haven't benchmarked it lately, it's always good to do that every 3 or 4 years. Pricing's changed a lot. And then.
Okay, wait, hello. Let me translate that for people. If no one's looked at your plan for 3 or 4 years, call Mike and he'll look at it and tell you if it's working for you and your goals and if there is a lower cost option, right?
That's right. And sometimes, a lot of times, we may fill in blanks and add different areas of the market. A lot of plans don't have emerging markets. A lot of plans, emerging market values, international small cap value. Some of these other areas of the market that have probably underperformed the last decade will be your winners next decade. And so having a choice in every asset class, I think is really good if you're saving over time, because risk and return are related.
Yeah, they are.
So you want to have lots of choice.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick recap. Tell me if I get anything wrong.
Okay.
We have options so when should we start retirement? We should start it yesterday.
That's good time.
When I planted a tree 20 years ago. So always start as soon as your company can afford it.
That's right.
So the minute you start to have some excess cash, there are ways to do it. You can do just a regular IRA, which has nothing to do with your company, and you can put $6,000 a year in.
Yep. 6,500. Yep.
6,500. Okay, you can do a simple IRA that you can put 13,500 in. You can do
plus the match.
Plus the match. You can do a SEP, which is a total, a max of 57,000, but whatever percentage you put in for yourself, you have to put in for all of your employees.
That's correct.
There is a profit sharing plan. A 401k plan with an employee deferral max of 19.5. And if you add on a profit sharing plan, the company can then put money in up to a max of 57,000. And the other type of plan is a defined benefit plan or a pension, which is really only appropriate if you have a mature business where all the money that it's producing cannot be reinvested back in. It would be better to invest it in the market, to go ahead and pull it out of the company. And it's better for an older owner with younger employees. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right.
Good.
So that is that. We talked about the difference between being able to invest pre-tax or post-tax. So traditional or Roth. We talked about the liability that owners have and how to push that liability off onto somebody else, like you. So you're the advisor.
Generally speaking, a 338 where you do that is the same. It should be almost the same cost as doing it a different way.
Awesome.
So I would almost always recommend just get a 338 and not mess with it.
Get a 338. So your providers are going to be your 338. They're going to be your TPA, your third-party administrator, and then the third person on your team who you will not see very often is the
custodian.
Custodian. All right. Biggest mistakes people make is they don't shop around and they pay too much. Or they go with the really easy option. So like a payroll company or insurance. And I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything?
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty good overview.
I'm working on it, man. I was listening.
You did good.
Awesome. All right, Mike. Well,
thank you so much. It's good times.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Can't wait to see you soon.
All right, thanks.
Bye, guys.